we talked Nebraska as well. They were certainly taking up the charge along with Ryan Day and Ohio State and Sean Wade and company to play football this year. So we can thank them for that. Adrian Martinez at this point last year was being touted as a Heisman candidate. And going into this year, he just simply had to win the job. 10 TDs, 9 picks for him last year, holding off Luke McCaffrey, who's still in the mix for playing time, according to Scott Frost. And so what do you think of the matchup, Kevin, in regards to Nebraska making any kind of threat in this one?
I think the one interesting thing is, and I know I've talked about before on previous appearances, is that defenses seem to be way behind offenses on a national level, more or less. So if that's the case, and let's say that just holds true into Big Ten play, I think this Nebraska team is explosive enough with Wan'Dale Robinson and with Adrian Martinez to bust off a couple of big plays. Now, I'm not talking about Oregon State coming to Ohio Stadium and running off a couple of 80-yard plays or anything like that. I mean, if that happens, there's obviously some issues to be concerned with. But I think that I think that they have some playmakers there. I'm not really sure that Dedrick Mills, their running back, is going to have a huge impact, but he might be a nice change of pace compared to how Adrian Martinez is able to get to the outside on some design cue runs. And then obviously they're going to have to find all sorts of ways to get the ball in Wan'Dale's hands, because I think he really is the X factor for the Nebraska offense. And they've had a whole off season to prepare. Granted, they haven't known up until a couple months ago that their season was going to open with Ohio State, but I don't think they were just introduced to Wan'Dale either. I think they knew that they had to get him the ball as many different unique and exciting ways as they could. And I think that's really going to be their best chance, because they're going to have to go shot for shot with Ohio State. And spoiler alert, that's not going to happen.
What you get, Steve, on the Huskers, Adrian Martinez and company?
Yeah, he was in a tough battle with Luke McCaffrey, it sounds like, for the quarterback position. It was not a done deal going into camp, and Scott Frost wanted to see Martinez raise his level. I think McCaffrey, in many respects, raised his level of play up to almost approximating what Martinez can do. And yet, I think with it being a push, he went with the guy who's a little more experienced. 2 years ago, Martinez played a pretty good game against Ohio State, and the Buckeyes only won 36-31 in Columbus, I believe was the final score last year. The Buckeyes jumped on Nebraska and gave them no oxygen at all. I think it was 48-7 was the final score, and that doesn't even really probably tell the whole tale. I think Martinez may have thrown 3 interceptions, 2 of them to Jeff Okudah and 1 to Jordan Fuller in that game a year ago. And the Buckeyes led from start to finish. So what are we expecting this time? Possibly something in the middle, where Ohio State maybe gets up 28-10 at halftime and just kind of puts it on cruise control in the second half and wins. I know the line is almost 4 full touchdowns, 26 points at this point, which seems like an awful lot. A lot of different thoughts. I mean, we had a lot of teams coming in to 2020 who we were told were going to be different and better, like Pittsburgh and Tennessee and some of these non-entities in recent years. And, they've been exposed in the first 5-6 weeks that, nope, they're same as they ever were. South Carolina, same thing, I think, early in the season. Now they've pulled off an upset, I guess, of, A&M last week or whatever.
Auburn.
So Auburn, I'm sorry, I get it all confused. But at any rate, Auburn, another example, a team that everybody thought, top 10 for sure, bull crap. Nix isn't any good at all. So, is Nebraska going to be a team that takes a giant step forward and ends up 6-2 with this tough schedule? Or are they going to be the same as they have been for the last decade, which is middle of the road, middle of the pack? They're 3-9, I think, in 2 years under Frost in games decided by 7 points or less. He is 9-15 in 2 years as the Nebraska coach. 9 of the 15 losses have come by 7 points or less, which is typically one play, one decision, one turnover, one terrible turn of the football, something that just went their wrong way, one penalty, one something. And I think Nebraska fans are at their wits' end, and they were with Pelini and they were with Riley, before this, just kind of tired of watching Nebraska beat itself, be in position to win games, but just come up one play short. And I think that's Nebraska's litmus test this year is, do they find a way to push through? I don't know who they play next week after they play Ohio State. It seems to me they might play like Wisconsin or somebody next week, an important division opponent, I think. Yeah, they need to push through and win a game that they maybe aren't predicted to win. I don't think they're going to win this one this week, but boy, it would mean the world if they're able to beat Wisconsin, say, next week and get a leg up in that West Division. Losing this game to Ohio State as a crossover game really, doesn't hurt you, because you still have the chance, if you run the table in your in-division games, to put yourself at least in a tie for first. So, and then, let the tiebreakers take care of themselves or whatever. But, yeah, I'm interested to see how good Nebraska will be this year. Their defense has been a complete buzzkill for most of the last decade. And, even when they've had teams that could put points on the board, they would lose games because they allow the other team to simply outscore them, which I know obviously is the object of the game, but I mean in a simple sense that you can't get a stop. So you couldn't stop them.
They fame the black shirts, and I've called them the black shirts because they've just been, or the bleak shirts, because they can't play defense. And I mean, looking through last year's schedule, they give up 34 to Colorado in overtime. They give up 38 to Illinois in a win. They give up 48 to Ohio State. They played a close game with Northwestern 13-10. They give up 34 to Minnesota in a loss. They give up 38 to Indiana in a loss. They give up 31 to Purdue in a loss. Catching a pattern here, they can't stop anybody. And they lose a lot up front. They lose, all three in their 3-4 system, all three of their guys up front. They lose probably their best defensive back. They lose a lot of talent. And here in week one, going against Ohio State's offense is probably not going to be a recipe for a lot of success for them. About the best thing that could happen to them is that Ohio State does get up to the aforementioned. I think it's going to need to be more than 28-10 for the Dogs to be called off. But for Ohio State to just get sick and tired and feel that they've passed the eye test at that point and be bringing 2s and 3s in, because until I see otherwise, Nebraska's defense has been a major problem. And I'm not sure what Scott Frost was thinking bringing in his defensive staff from UCF when UCF was a point-a-minute type of team and had to outscore you and would beat Memphis 700 to 699 or whatever. Bringing in the guys that were there, masterminding that defense, I don't think was necessarily the right decision.
They say Wan'Dale Robinson is the big name to watch. I know you mentioned him, and he's going to be playing more at wide receiver, I guess, this year than at running back. I think if they can get him out in space and create a few things for him, that would be huge. And test Ohio State's revamped secondary. Maybe they hit a big one or two on them in this first game. I think another thing for Ohio State is the pass rush. You don't have Chase Young there anymore to collapse the pocket and to get in the passer's view range or the viewfinder. So you need to exert some pressure with Jonathan Cooper, Tyreek Smith, Zach Harrison, Tyler Friday, Javonte Jean-Baptiste, those 5 in particular at defensive end need to come up big. Ohio State a little thin at defensive tackle with Teron Vincent and Haskell Garrett. It sounds like they're still on the shelf, not going to play against Nebraska. So, will this be the time that Antoine Jackson, the former Auburn transfer, finally in his 3rd year makes a play for Ohio State? The Tommy Togiai, very promising last year as a backup to Devon Hamilton and Ja'Shawn Cornell. Will he get the start? Will he be a difference maker at defensive tackle? So these are all things that Ohio State fans can keep an eye on. I think it's going to be interesting, watching this game, as Kevin could allude to, what the personnel groupings are going to be in different down and distance and score in time situations? And are they going to go with one safety or two safeties? And like they went last year with strictly Jordan Fuller for the most part as a single high safety. Do they do that this year with Proctor, or do they give Proctor and Hooker both an opportunity to play and just go with two corners? Guess it remains to be seen. But that'll be kind of the game within the game for Ohio State fans, is to enjoy and watch the various personnel groupings, both on offense and defense this year or this week, to see who is really in their plan for this year.
Yeah, Wan'Dale Robinson caught 40 passes last year, but they used him as a running back, a lot of jet sweeps out of the backfield. He only went for 3.9 per carry. To Kevin's point, Muhammad Berry, their best defensive player at linebacker, he's gone. And Nebraska football, Adrian Martinez, just think about the kind of quarterback he is. He's a decent passer, but he's more dynamic runner than passer. And that's maybe why he burned an Ohio State defense that was having issues giving up those kind of plays 2 years ago. But last year wasn't the type of player against a defense that's that well equipped athletically to do much damage. And it's interesting to see what Nebraska failed to do last year, coming off those final 6 games in 2018. So they lost the first 6 under Frost, his first year. Then they come down the stretch. They come within a score of Ohio State in Columbus. They won 4 of the final 6, and that also included another loss against a good Iowa team on the final play of the game. So they had shown just tremendous progress in the final 6 games of 2018. So much was expected last year, and they just kind of fell flat, lost to anybody with a pulse. And here they are in 2020, and we'll see what they've got. But as Steve pointed out, they have what is considered to be the most difficult schedule in the Big Ten against the West, and then they've got Ohio State and Penn State as their 2 crossovers.